Hello and welcome to the Graphics Framebuffer tutorial. I'm going to show you how to install this thing. It should run on just about any Linux or FreeBSD system. Even I don't think it'll run on Apple though, because Apple's got special video drivers. It doesn't have a Framebuffer, but you can run VirtualBox on Apple and it'll work just fine. I happen to be running VirtualBox right now, which is what you're looking at. And this is how I'm going to demonstrate how to get this thing going. I'm going to be using Linux Mint, which is a Ubuntu derivative. But this will work on Raspbian, Ubuntu, Mint, just about any other flavor out there. I'm going to be, because I'm using a Debian-based system, I'm going to be showing you steps that are based on Debian. So if you have a Red Hat or a Fedora system, well, you're going to have to adapt. The instructions show you how to do things for Red Hat or Fedora, but this video is just for Debian. Okay, the first thing you need to do is make sure your system is fully updated. So do an update, then an upgrade, and make sure all the packages and the kernel, everything all are up to date with your package manager. And the next thing you're going to want to do is to install this stuff. And this is in the instructions, but go ahead and pause the video if you want to type that in. These are the packages that the module will need. Basically, the first one, Build Essential, is just the C compiler and so forth. Because this module uses C in addition to Perl. Then the next one is Imager. Imager is what renders fonts and loads images and so forth for this module. You need to install it from your package manager and not from CPAN, because CPAN, if you are missing some libraries that say handle true type fonts or load images, it just ignores that fact and still installs Imager without that capability. So you're going to break Imager if you don't install it properly. So I just recommend the packaged version, and you get that problem out of your way. So let's see. The rest of them are just like gradient, Bezier, file map, which helps map the frame buffer to a variable, and then the test packages, which it needs to, install and do testing. syscpu is not necessarily needed, but it's in the example script, so I recommend just installing it anyway. And then fontswine, that just makes sure the Windows fonts are installed as well, because a lot of people use those, things like Arial and so forth. So just go ahead and install them. I should already have them installed, so it says, hey, it's already installed, no big deal. But for you, it should pull in all of its prerequisites and so forth and install it for you. But once you're done, and make sure the graphics Framebuffer package is extracted, and it should look like this when you extract it in its own directory. It's pretty simple to install. All you have to do is Perl on character, make file PL, let it run, and it's going to examine your system, and it shows you some things that you need. Before I continue, you need to make sure you're in a console window. Not a window, I mean a console. You can't do this from X Windows, because this module expects you to be in console, because that's how the Framebuffer works. So if you want some sort of a system that uses Windows, this is not the module for you. You want something like SDL, GTK, or QT, or something else if you found something else. But anyway, back to this. We've ran that part of the installation. Now we type make. It's going to compile the C portion of the module. It doesn't take too long. It won't even take too long on a Raspberry Pi, although this here is a virtual machine running on a Intel system. Okay, we've done that. Now we do make test, and it works, which is great. So now we need to install it. We have to do sudo, so it will install it. give you a higher level of privileges, so it will put it in the proper place for Perl. That's what it's doing. Okay, when we're all done, it's a good idea to just clean up your mess. I type make real clean. That gets rid of all the extra files it created during the make process. Now there we go, back to normal. Now I recommend going into the examples directory, and this shows you some sample scripts that you can use as a reference to develop your own project. The most important one is called template.pl. You can use that as your starting point, but I recommend copying that and then use the copy as your starting point. If you want to take a look at that file, it's just a sample script. It just gives you the basics of how to get started. And you just fill in your code right here. Right, put it all in right here. And this should work just as is. You can make changes if you want and so forth. But that's just a basic script to get you going. Save it. Okay, the next thing that's important is the one called dump. Now, what dump does is if you're having problems, let's say it installed, but it had troubles with test, or you're having some weird issues, run dump. What it will do, it'll attempt to load the module, and then it will just immediately exit. But what it does is it creates a file. And that file is called dump.log. And that gives me information to help debug your problem. So I know what the module's doing internally, because there are some special variables in here that it needs to map the screen to memory and so forth. That will help me decide how to help you. So if you're going to request for some help, include this file as an attachment in your email. Okay? Go back and remove that file. All right. Next one is called primitives. We're going to skip mouse because I don't recommend using the mouse capability. It was just to see if it could be done. Let's go to primitives. Primitives is actually kind of handy. It is the best way to test this module because it's going to show you absolutely everything it can do. First, it's going to load in some images, and that's what it's doing, as you can see at the top of the screen. It's testing the color, red, green, blue, both directions. Make sure it's mapped properly. It'd always start with red, then go to green, then go to blue. And it gives you a nice little test pattern. It's testing plotting capability. Then line drawing. An angle line drawing. Draws lines at an angle. Polygon testing. Going so fast, it's just filling the screen. Then anti-alias line testing. As you can see, it's a lot slower. Same with polygon anti-alias line drawing. And polygon. Okay, now it's doing box drawing. Just an empty box, just a frame, and a rounded empty frame with rounded corners. The box with rounded corners, or circles. And ellipses. Random configurations. And arcs, which are just partial circles. And then arcs again, but they are shaped more like pies. Or some cases, Pac-Mans. Or Pac-Men. Bezier curves. And filled box tests. Rounded corner filled boxes. Circles with that are filled. And ellipses that are filled. By the way, a lot of these routines are just Perl routines. Except for this one. This one's done by Imager. So is this one. Just a lot quicker to do that way with Imager. And this one is both Perl and Imager. Imager is what creates the pattern, and then Perl goes ahead and draws the object with the pattern. Yeah, Perl actually can be pretty fast if you do it the right way. it's showing you all the different drawing methods and different filling methods. This one here is a vertical gradient, and you can have as many transitions as you want as long as it doesn't exceed the number of pixels that it has to transition through. So let's say you're going to draw a circle. If it was at a radius of 200, which gives you a total diameter of 400, well, then you can't have more than 400 transitions for your gradient. Same goes for horizontally and so forth. See, after the gradients, I do believe it does texture filling instead of just gradient and color. Find out when it's done here. These different circles and different objects with gradients. See, it's doing a horizontal gradient. Yeah, here we go. It's using pictures as textures, and it's resizing them on the fly. That's why it's a little slower. I mean, if your texture was already sized, it wouldn't be any slower. It would be just as quick as the other boxes. Because these are being resized for each and every box, it's going to be a little slower. Working pretty good. Circles now. Got some ellipses. Polygons. You can see there's no rhyme or reason to it. Just using random images. Then fonts. Plotting them all over the place. And it's doing word wrapping. This word wrapping takes a long time. I don't recommend using it unless you really, really have to. And if you do, don't use a lot of text. This is going to do a full screen's worth of text using word wrapping. As you can tell, that's a lot of text, and it took it a while to do that. And it's also trying to do that one there as well. And let's see, font rotation. I need to write that routine a little bit better. But it works. The whole idea with this is, oh cool, color replacing. The whole idea is this is to see what works on your system and what doesn't. As you can see, blitting is pretty darn fast. Whoa. I might need to recode that part. That goes too fast. That's rotation. That's using my C subroutines, but the Imager ones are supposed to be higher quality. They're slower, but I don't see the difference, to be honest with you. I recommend just using the standard quality rotations because they're a lot faster. And then there's the monochrome ones. Converts the image to a monochrome and then blitz it all over the place. And then XOR drawing, and then it undraws everything by redrawing them again, which is pretty cool. Or we're going to be seeing different bit modes for drawing. You can do different effects with that. As you can see, you can get rid of some colors and stuff. And then mask drawing, which is like a template. Then unmask, which does everything in the reverse. Alpha drawing, which is transparent, you can see. Add just can be a mess. Subtract, that looks different. Well, whatever effect you want to achieve. This is going to load and play animations and then benchmark them. When it's blue, it's loading. When it's black, it's playing. And when it's green, it's benchmarking. And that's just for this demonstration program. That's not necessarily part of the module. Let's see, it's loading this animation. And now it's just playing it normally at the speed that the animation's supposed to be played at. And now it's benchmarking it. Here's another one at normal size, then benchmarks it. As soon as it turns green, there, it's being benchmarked. I believe that thing plays back at about 15,000 frames per second. See, now it's loading it up at full screen. It's a little bit slower when it loads it at full screen. There we go. Plays it back at normal speed. Then benchmarks it. Can't even see it. Now, that text that scrolled by is all the benchmark numbers. If you want to capture standard, I think it's standard error, and copy it to a file, you'll get all your benchmark results. So if you did primitives, like that, and then type the file name, test, or it'll pipe all that benchmark results to test, and then you can look at what test says. Okay, let's look at the rest of the things here. Slideshow. I wrote a slideshow for you. Shows you how to do images. What should I show you? I guess I could just show you the built-in image. If you don't pass a parameter to it, it just scans the local directory for any nested pictures inside all the directories nested inside the local directory. And of course, in this case, it's images, I mean. And it's showing them at their real size, so it's not resizing any of them. So things go a bit faster that way. And it shuffles by default. That one was a big image. Let me go ahead and get out of this. This time, I'll tell it to resize them all to full screen. It'll do that. If it has room, it will pile the images, which you just saw there. But it only does that in full screen mode. Assumes you want to fill the screen up with as much image as possible, so it'll double up on some images. Or center them. I think it's loading that other animation. There we go. Loading now. Like I said, it shuffles everything. When it's all done, it's done playing. Now, you can, if you want, tell it to go in another directory or a series of multiple directories. I think that's a decent directory. And when I tell it to show the images, scans all the files, starts showing more pictures. I have thousands here, so wait for all those. But you can nest multiple directories, you know, like stuff like that, and keep going, and it'll scan all of them. So you can do more than one. Now, if you have any pictures you don't want people to see, well, all you have to do inside whatever directory that they are contained in, add the file called .no media. And it won't scan any of the files or any of the subdirectories within that directory for pictures to show. However, if you want to override that, you can say show all, and it'll show all of them, regardless of the .media file. It just comes in handy for you. Let's see. You can tell it different wait times. You just say wait, equals, you can say 1 second. I do believe it'll go just 1 second. Yeah, see? Cancel that. So that's a handy script. By the way, if you want to have some instructions on how to use these scripts, you just Perl doc them, and it'll show you. That has something to do with Perl doc. I don't know why it does a control. Oh, I guess I could tell it to just do it in text mode. There we go. It shows you, oh, if you also want to turn the module on error mode, it'll show you errors. It'll also automatically control colors, but that doesn't work good all the time. Sometimes it works great, sometimes it works bad, so you can turn it on or off. I think that's it for that. Yep. Okay. Let's go ahead and go to the next file. The text file called text mode. Some of these scripts put the system in what's called graphics mode. Or you may have a script that puts it in graphics mode, and when you, let's say it crashes or does something weird, okay? Well, now you're stuck at a console without any keyboard input or any display output because it's in graphics mode. Well, if you just type /text mode, it'll kick it into text mode for you. Okay? That's if it was in graphics mode, and then you'll be back to normal. I put that script in there to kind of save your butt to help you out. Now, view pick is very similar to slideshow, except it just shows one image, and it will wait by default, I think, 10 seconds. So if I say images, let's say Halloween, I guess. Actually, I want it to be full screen, just like the slideshow. There it is. It'll wait 10 seconds. Then it will exit. That's it. Now there are some utilities out there, like FB term, that allows you to accelerate the Framebuffer in text mode only. Don't get me wrong; it's not for graphics, but it comes in handy if you really like scrolling fast and so forth. But it also lets you have an image as a background. Well, you can't have an image that looks as bright and colorful as that one. So you can tell it instead, whoops, to dim the image. And so I'll call it alpha, gives it an alpha channel, and I'll say at 32 instead of 255, which is full brightness. So now, when it displays it, it's really dark. You can change that number to anything you want. Then you can use that as your background. And FB term has a way to do that. They give you instructions on how to use that image as a background. And also the other way to do that, if you don't want to wait, you can say wait equals 0, and it will just do it and exit. Okay? It immediately exited immediately. But that comes in handy if you want to save that image for background use. Let's see, multi-processing, which is handy. You want to speed things up a little bit. Shows you how to do some threading, and there's a threaded template in there as well. You could write some threaded scripts. Also, Mario Roy wrote some great scripts that use the MCE module. And if you want to get his code, you just use get MCE demos, and it will download his scripts. You can play with those. But there are more libraries and so forth you'll have to install with that. So we'll get to that one later. Go ahead and look at threaded primitives. Now, let's see. I think I allowed this virtual machine to have 5 cores. So let's see what it should show 10 images at once. Doing some internal stuff. Probably make that print a little. Oh, well, it's not a slideshow. I'm sorry. It's the primitives. VirtualBox has problems with threads. As you can see, it's kind of choppy. It doesn't do that on a normal machine. In fact, it's really fast, even on an ARM machine. So it's kind of choppy. What it's going to be doing is basically the same as that other program, except it's going to be doing it all at once, 5 at a time. So you'll see a lot of different stuff just jumbled all together. It just shows that you can write to the frame buffer in multiple threads. That comes in handy. The other one I wanted to show you, which is what I was thinking I was doing, but I wasn't, is the threaded slideshow. And it should show you 10 images at once because I've got it on 5 threads. Okay. Kind of funny. I believe this will just keep going forever. I think. No, actually, I think it'll exit when it's all done. I'm not going to wait for it. And I think you can adjust the threads. Just saying threads equals, let's say, 2 instead of 5. Yep, and it just shows you 2 images at once. Good. I think its limit is 12. Heck, I think it'll throttle at 12. It won't do any more than 12 at a time. That's just this slideshow program. It has nothing to do with the system. It's just you don't want to overwhelm it because that's a lot of images to load in memory. But 12 threads right there. By the way, that little bit you're seeing at the bottom is only because I have the font set to a larger size so you can see it a lot better. And the clear screen option doesn't clear that last line because it's not a full height of text. So that's why you still see some artifacts. I guess that's it there. Let me see if we can do Mario Roy's samples. Go ahead and go get them. It goes and uses get to do its job. But now what you'll see is a bunch of new files. And I think I have everything installed. So this should work just fine. Yeah. Right. He shows that the MCE library is a bit easier to use and also works with Perls that aren't threaded. Which is handy, which probably means it uses forks to do its work. No big deal. It does its job. And I also believe you can have a shared frame buffer. You don't have to have duplicate frame buffers like you have to with threading. It means all the different processes can use just the one frame buffer object, which is real handy. Control the number of threads and so forth, so it shows you more boxes and things like that. He has the same thing with lines. But they're just sample files so you can see what he does and show you how to do it or how to use MCE. Handy little tools. He also has the same thing with primitives. Actually works better apparently in VirtualBox. That's pretty interesting. That's because it's using forks and not threads. Huh. Pretty cool. Exited. See how a slideshow works. Oh, slide works. Like it's got an error. Like you need to fix it. Well, that tool, that MCE get MCE demos, always gets you the latest code. So if he fixes it, let's go ahead and remove his stuff now. There we go. See, what else can I tell you? Okay, let's go through the to-dos. Direct rendering manager. I'm not even sure that's ever going to be possible. it's still there just in case I ever run away to find a way to do it. That's kind of going out of the Framebuffer mold, getting into GPU. I mean, it would be fast, but I don't think it would be exactly what you want in Framebuffer mode. I kind of want to get rid of Imager and use my own routines, but so far, not yet. Somebody asked me about single-bit monochrome, you know, kind of the same graphics mode like the old Macintosh had, just one bit for on and off and so forth, or what the high-resolution mode is on Atari STs and things like that. I'm not going to do that unless somebody gives me some purpose to use it. If they want to loan me a system to let me develop it, that's fine. Or loan me a display. It doesn't have to be a whole system. It can just be a display that has it. That's fine with me. I'll be glad to get it working for them. And the same goes with 8-bit palletized VGA drawing. Kind of the same situation. I'm not going to add that unless somebody really. But otherwise, True Color 16-bit, 24-bit, and 32-bit work just fine. Raspberry Pis do that, so it's not a big deal. There are some known issues. I haven't addressed them yet. Like Blit Transform, flipping the horizontally sometimes does things weird. I don't know what that is. I don't know why it's doing it. But as soon as I figure that out, I'll fix it. Until then, you can just, I believe it's rotated 180 degrees and then flip it vertically and it'll work just fine. It'll do the same thing. It should probably be just as fast. Unmasked drawing has a little bit of a problem on 16-bit displays. So just use mask mode instead and just work backwards. Since it's just the polar opposite of unmask. Yeah, I re-enabled the console status methods. Basically, you can check to see if the console that you're in is active. You know, for example, if somebody hit like an alternate, you know, something like that, it goes and does. Oh. There we go. In case somebody does that, it won't keep drawing on the screen, but you have to put the code in for that. I didn't. I took it out. But the methods are still there to call if you want to. I've noticed that the Nouveau Framebuffer driver, which NVIDIA has, it's not really NVIDIA's, it's for NVIDIA cards, though, is horribly slow on Framebuffer. I don't know why. It used to be really fast, but now it's tearfully slow. You got me. Maybe just use a Visa mode instead of using the Nouveau Framebuffer driver. I don't know. I mean, it's just bizarre. I don't understand why. And it's not for normal mode drawing. It's only for things like OR and or XOR. Bitwise drawing is where it gets slow. So I have a feeling it has to do with accessing memory. Let's see. What was the last one? Yeah, I indicate that the mouse routines are there if you want to use them, but I don't recommend it. It's kind of out of the scope of this module anyway. See, want to read how do things. This is good to use, the README file. But the biggest thing you want to do read the manual. Oops, what am I doing? Oh, graphics Framebuffer, bitch. And read the instructions on how to do it. Go through the whole thing, operational theory, special variables, the whole thing tells you how to do everything. There's even code samples for each and every one. Okay. Just keep going. Tells you how to do polyarcs, how to do ellipses, how to do circles, how to do polygons, everything. And one thing you'll notice is almost every routine. There's a few exceptions, but almost every routine you need to pass to it a reference to a hash. It's doing it this way for speed. That's the only reason why I chose to do that. Things go a little faster that way, so that's why it's that way, in case you ever wanted to ask. There are a lot of... go to the top again. There are a lot of constants that you can use. Here we go, constants. You know, like true, false, normal mode, all these different things you can use to make your Perl a lot more readable when using this module. You can use these constants instead of variable value. Typically, the module can figure out which device you have available, but if you have more than one device, one frame buffer device, let's say you have FB1 and FB2, and you only want it to use FB1, let's say, well, if you don't tell it, it's going to use FB0, the very first one it finds. So you have to pass it the FB device parameter with /dev FB1 instead, and then it will open that. So if that's the case, that's what you use. That's in the new method. Open it, you see right there. I think that's about it there. The rest of it I recommend studying, playing with some of the samples, see how it works for you. If you have any suggestions, go ahead and email me. The information is in the documentation there. I believe it's, I guess the manual is the best place to look, because at the very end down here, it shows you this YouTube channel, but it also shows you how to write me. And there, see author. I suggest putting the graphics frame buffer as part of the subject line so I can see it fast. I'm not an ogre. I'm not going to chew you out. If you need some help, I'll be glad to help you out. But it might take me a day or two to respond because I'm pretty busy. So, like I said, I'll help you out. And if you are working on a new project, I'd like to know about it. If it's using my module, it'd be kind of cool to see. Well, I guess that's it for this. This should be a little better than the last video I made.